The baby won't sleep.
Why don't you just tell her a story?
Alright, I'm gonna tell you a story, okay? It's about Ocarina of Time, which is my favorite game of all time. You start as a boy in a forest, but you're like an elf. You have pointy ears, but you're not the same as everybody else, even though you look the same as everybody else. And you're an outcast, but you do have friends. And then this fairy comes, and the fairy's like, hey, you gotta go fix this tree. And first, before you can go fix the tree, you gotta get a sword. And to get a sword, you gotta crawl into this place, and there's like this giant rock that just endlessly kind of rolls. I don't really know how that works, but it's always rolling forever. And then you go into this tree, talking historian tree. So you save the tree, but the tree dies, and it's very sad. He tells you about all this stuff, about the Triforce, and it was very intense when I was young. And then you go into Hyrule Field to continue your adventure. You have to go meet Princess Zelda. You get an ocarina before you go there from your friend Saria. She's important later on. Actually, she's important all the time. I should have mentioned her earlier. So you go to Hyrule Castle after walking around in the field, and it's very exciting because back then, to see a giant field that you could walk for a long time in was very impressive. So you go to the castle, and you play a stealth game. Zelda suddenly turns into a stealth game after some stuff with a chicken, and when you go talk to Zelda, she tells you about Ganondorf, who's the bad guy. Then you go to the Zora Domain. I don't remember why. And instead of going into a giant tree to save somebody or something, you go into a giant fish. And then the Princess Zora is inside the fish, because for some reason she likes to play inside the fish. I guess it's like a playground inside his belly usually, but in this case, something bad has happened, and he's got like electric jellyfish that float around, and Link's like, whatever, I gotta go to Goron Place. And the Gorons are like rock people, and they eat rocks, which are finite. You go play some music for the king of the Gorons, and he does this awesome dance, and then he lets you go behind his office? I don't really remember. He has like an office for some reason. Let's skip ahead to the dungeon, okay, where you can start throwing bombs. Okay, we'll skip ahead. You sleep for 7 years. Isn't that exciting? I know it's intense and scary in the future. Or at least, well, I haven't told you that yet, but it is intense and scary in the future. There are zombies. It's crazy. Oh, you just want to stand up? There's this girl, or it's a guy. Oh, wait, never mind. Just pretend I didn't say that. It's a guy, okay? And his name is Sheik, and he says to go into the forest. But before you do that, you gotta go to a graveyard to get the hook shot. I think there's a race with a ghost. Dampy, the gravekeeper. And you play music for the skull kid who comes back later in the second game. You do have to go through a little maze before you get into the dungeon, and there's these big, like, pig-like enemies, and there's one that has this giant hammer. And I always thought that guy was weird because that's the only time that enemy shows up in the game. That one guy lives in that hallway and just slams a hammer on the ground, and then you kill him and he's extinct. Now we're on the theme of ghosts. You have to fight the ghost version of Ganondorf. I think he has a skull head, so I think he kind of looks like Ghost Rider. So that's where they introduce you to the hitting the energy back and forth mechanic. So you kill that guy, you defeat that ghost boss. I guess you don't kill him because he's already a ghost. This is where things get a little hazy, Claire, because I don't really remember where you go next. I think that you can go to the water temple next. There's like a water temple that everyone always complains about as being really hard. So the water and the fire, I don't know if I'm going in the right order. How many is that? I don't know how many that is. Oh, there's the desert. That one's the last one, though. We don't want to skip to the desert. Let's see. Okay, then there's the spirit dungeon temple where you fight the witches, who are like two old ladies, but then they combine to become this sort of hot witch lady. And then you got these like seals at all those dungeons, temples, and so you have enough power now and enough equipment to go enter the castle. You walk up the stairs, and you fight Ganondorf. And he's playing a piano, or an organ of some kind, and he's very evil and scary. So you fight him, and you fight him by knocking energy bolts back at him, and you used these wing shoes that you have. I know I left out that part where you got the wing shoes. So you fight him, and he falls to the ground, and Zelda's there, and she gives you a bow and arrow that shoots light. Well, actually, you were using it the whole boss fight, so she gave it to you beforehand, I guess, or you got it from a dungeon. You defeat him, and his cape is all messed up. His cape has a bunch of holes in it. And then you go downstairs because the castle's falling apart. And then you go outside, and you think you're home free, but you're actually not. This is something you will learn about pretty much every video game ever, is that the boss isn't defeated until you beat him like 3 or 4 times in a row. So Ganondorf turns into this giant like pig thing, and you have to roll under his legs, I think, and hit him in the tail. Then you stab him in the face. I think you shove the sword in his nose, and I think there's even some blood. Which when I was a kid, I was like, whoa! I know, it was intense. Oh, look at all this slobber. It seems like you're kind of getting tired because you're rocking your head back and forth now. So Ganondorf is defeated, and you and Zelda are hanging out in the clouds. For whatever reason, she found this nice little spot in the clouds, and then she's like, you got to go back to being a kid, and then you do. And that's where things get really complicated, because then it's like split timelines and alternate Zelda dimensions. We're not going to get into all that, because I just wanted to tell you the one story about the Hero of Time. And yeah, and that's how it all happened.